Okay, guys, welcome to the Subject to Deal Profitability Calculator. I just really quickly want to walk you through the different steps that you can take and the different things you can use this calculator for. So first off, let's talk about the tabs, these tabs down below. The first tab that we're going to start off with is the acquisition assumptions. Now, these are going to be your numbers that you use when you are buying a property. And you don't necessarily have to, this doesn't necessarily have to be a subject to deal. You can actually use this for other types of deals as well. But it is primarily targeted for subject to deals. But if you're doing owner financing or something like that, you can absolutely use this calculator as well. So the first page, or the first tab that we come to, is the acquisition assumptions. And as I said, these are your numbers that you are buying the property for. What do those numbers look like? You have your, what's your ARV? What's the fair market value of the property? What is the balance on the loan, the seller's loan, if you're taking it subject to? What are your expenses? And that's going to include any cash that you've agreed to pay the seller at closing. Any agent commissions if you're working with an agent, any kind of closing costs if you're buying a title policy, things like that. And then we have our repairs. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Make sure that you have really accurate repair numbers. We always recommend getting no less than 3 different estimates from contractors. If you have your own in-house team of contractors, they're going to be able to give you the accurate repair number. By the way, we are only filling in the green cells. All the other cells have been disabled. So we only need to fill in the green cells on any of this. And this is, throughout the entire workbook here. So we got our repairs. Let's go ahead and jump down to this. This was pretty important. Months in arrears. So the way these calculations work, first of all, if you know the exact amount of a loan, maybe your seller's behind in payments. If you know what that exact amount is, go ahead and plug that in. But if you don't, this is an either or calculation, meaning if you only know how many months it has been since they have not made a payment, you would go ahead and plug that in. But preferably, if you know the exact amount, go ahead and plug that in. You're not going to plug in both of these. It's one or the other. Okay. Next thing we have is the original underlying loan amount. This is the amount that the seller got the loan for, the original amount. Okay, so they may owe $75,000, but the original loan amount might have been, $85,000. So you'll need to know that. It's very important. The underlying loan interest rate. What is the interest rate on this loan? The underlying loan term. And we do this in months. We didn't auto calculate this. So if your seller has been, and this is, so this would be 300. So if you have a 30-year amortization, this would be 360 months. Pretty simple. Sorry to complicate that on you. The number of months paid on that underlying loan. And you can usually find this information in tools like Property Radar, PropStream. You can find out when a loan was originated, and then you can do the math and do the calculation to figure out how many months they have actually paid on that loan. And then that's going to spit out the number of remaining months on that loan. Then we have yearly taxes, yearly insurance, and yearly HOA dues, if any. All right, so now we've got that figured out, got that all completed and filled in. Go over to the owner finance exit strategy tab, rather. And this is a strategy that we like to use whereby we pick up a property subject to, and we're going to turn around and we're going to flip that property to, whatever type of buyer. It could be a owner occupant buyer. It could be a landlord buyer, whatever type, could be a retail buyer, whatever. So we are going to, in this situation, we're looking for an owner finance exit. So, or an owner finance buyer rather. So what we're going to do is all of these numbers are going to auto-populate. They're going to be pulled in from this information, and they're going to be plugged in right here. So on every single one of these tabs, you're going to see these numbers. You're going to see those numbers being auto-populated. But on the owner finance exit tab, all we have are 4 cells that we can complete. And this first one, D30, is owner finance sales price percentage bump. And all that means is, okay, this thing has a fair market value of 85,000, let's say. How much are we actually going to bump that sales price up so that we can make our spread? We like to start out, I usually generally start out with 10% on all of these. So once you have that filled in, it's going to give you this. It's not going to populate because we haven't filled in any of this information. But if you did 10% right here, this would be the owner finance price. That's going to be their new price. So, if it's a $100,000 house and you're doing a 10% bump, $110,000 would be the owner finance sales price. The down payment, again, we usually start out with 10, and in this case, if it was $100,000, we were going to finance. We're going to finance $100,000, but we're putting 10% down. So that would, or your buyer's putting 10% down. So that would mean that the owner finance down payment, your buyer's down payment to you, is going to be $10,000. Owner finance term in years, it's the same as the underlying note. We generally make that term a 30-year term, just like the underlying note. Generally speaking, depending on the numbers and whether or not the payment's going to work out for your buyer. The owner finance interest rate, this is where things get really, really interesting, because all we're doing is we are arbitraging our interest rate to our owner finance buyer against the underlying loan interest rate. So if the underlying loan interest rate is 5%, and we have to make that spread. So we know that we can't charge our buyer 5%. We have to charge our buyer a higher interest rate. So let's say it's 10%. So now you have a 5% spread, meaning you have that's your cash flow. That's your monthly cash flow. And that's how we get the monthly cash flow. And you can really work those numbers to fit whatever your criteria are for cash flow. So it gets really, really interesting there. And then the rest of these will autofill. We got the owner finance loan amount. This is the actual amount that you are financing your buyer for after the down payment is made. This will show your day one equity spread. This will be your owner finance, your buyer's monthly principal and interest. And then for the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, we actually just pass through property taxes and insurance, because this is an installment sale. And so your buyer is going to be responsible for the taxes and the insurance. This will give you your total front-end purchase expenses. It will show you your reserve requirement, which is going to be essentially, it's going to be 3 times what your principal, interest, and what your payment is. So let's say that your payment on the underlying loan is $500 a month. Well, we have a minimum 3-month reserve requirement that we need to hold back. We need to hold those funds back for 3 months. So that would be $1,500. And that's just in case of a vacancy. We'd really like to see you hold at 6 months. That's really the safest number, but absolute minimum is 3 months. So then we have a front end profit, which is very, very possible to make money on the front end on a lot of these deals. We have monthly cash flow. We have the number of months before there's positive cash flow. So that would be otherwise known as your break-even point. Then we have our cash on cash return, our cap rate on the deal, our loan constant. These are a little advanced. These are advanced calculations that a lot of people don't use on single families, but we like to use them because it helps us calculate our spread. And then what will happen if you've got a good deal in your hands, this cell right here will turn green. All right, so basically the same thing for lease options. Let's go over to this tab. Your monthly lease amount. How much is that? Is it $1,000 a month? You have your security deposit. How long is the term of your lease? Are you paying any utilities? What is your option sales price? If you're doing a lease option, you have both a a rental agreement, a lease agreement, and you have a separate option agreement. Okay, so what is your option sales price? Is there a percentage of your option price applied to the sales price, or this is another or situation? You can only choose one of these. Do you apply a certain percentage to the sales price, or do you apply a portion of the option in a dollar amount to the sales price, or do you credit that? Excuse me. And do you also have a monthly portion of your rent that goes towards the purchase, towards your tenant buyer's purchase price? If you're doing property management, go ahead and plug that in here, and this will spit out whether or not this would make a good lease option for you. And then we go to our rental, same sort of thing. It kind of gets just easier as we go down the list here, but you're going to plug this information in, and it will spit out whether or not this is would be a good rental for you. Then we have a flip exit. Basically, this is really where your rental estimate needs to be accurate. I'm sorry, your repair estimate needs to be really, really accurate. Yeah, and so are you going to finance a percentage of those repairs? What does that look like? What are your loan points? What is your loan interest rate? How long are you going to be holding on to it? And what percentage are your closing costs? So these are set up kind of, by design to be from most profitable in most situations all the way down to least profitable. But it's pretty self-explanatory once you get into it and start messing with it. Once you do, if you decide to go the owner finance exit route and you're going to buy a property, say subject to, and then you're going to turn around and sell it to an owner finance buyer, you're going to finance that buyer. What we also provide is an owner finance amortization schedule. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to, you've only got 2 cells to fill out in this. And one of those is, got to ask the question, are you going to create a balloon loan? Is the loan that you're giving your buyer, is that going to balloon? Meaning, is there a certain amount of time where that loan either needs to be refinanced or paid off or whatever? Usually that's somewhere in the range, anywhere from 3 to 10 years generally, but you don't have to have one. And then we have your first payment date. When is this loan going to take effect? And essentially what that's going to do is going to complete this amortization schedule. And it's also going to highlight, you can see these blue cells. It's going to highlight, if you say that your balloon loan is the term is in 10 years, but your first payment date is going to be, I don't know, it's going to be 12/1, 2021. Now what it's going to do is it's going to highlight that when that loan is actually due, and then you can just go over to the last field, which shows you the ending balance. This is how much your buyer is responsible for paying once that agreement reaches that balloon date. Okay, so that's it. If you have any questions, jump in the Facebook group. You can ask anything you want about this calculator. We have a lot of people that have used this calculator, and there's plenty of knowledge floating around out there if you have questions about it. All right, thanks very much. Take care.